Yeah, I understand if you guys can't attend those meetings. I'm gonna try to move them a little bit further into the day. They're really early. Um, yeah, I wanted to make that completely clear that those two meetings that are on a Friday and Monday are not like set in stone, and they're like 90% gonna change because some of them I can't even attend. That was an oversight on my part. I didn't realize. So again, a bit of a shorter meeting today. Let me get started with presenting. So again, thank you guys so much. This is our third meeting. Um, we made it quite far already. It's already been like what, 3 weeks that you guys have been here. Um, One thing I want to focus on is your guys' again your research. Last week I give you guys a task, which was to start working on your introduction. I've gotten a lot of great messages of people starting their introduction, their research problems, their hypotheses, and that's really good. So if you haven't gotten started on that, don't worry, you're not too behind. We're gonna get, this is still very introductory.
Mm.
So uh, first of all, if you guys can do your attendance, the link or the QR code should work. If you want.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can put the link in the chat for you guys. I'll give you guys like a minute to do that. Oh, and I had some people asking me why the city and country are in the attendance link. We want to just see how many people are attending from around the world each time we do a meeting. Like our first meeting, we had a little over 100. Our second meeting, we had a little over 100. Today, we have like around 80. So different people are attending at different times. So we just want a little bit of, I guess, statistics on that. Okay, I'll leave the meeting link or the attendance link, sorry, in the chat. I'll move on from here. So I've gotten a lot of questions on this, and um, some of you might already know, but I wanted to go over this. What are the differences between a paper, a slideshow, and a poster? So one thing I want to emphasize is that everyone here will complete a paper and poster, or everyone who here who's like you're gonna oh oops, who's gonna work on their capstone project. Everyone's gonna work on a paper and poster. The slideshow is only for those who want to present or want a chance to present. Um, so we're gonna have an in-person capstone meeting at USC. It's currently scheduled for September 5th. That may change, but it's pretty much set in stone. And after that, the professors and I are planning a virtual symposium. Since a lot of our applicants and a lot of our scholars are international, and even if you guys are in the US, you guys probably don't live around California. Maybe some of you do, a lot of you don't. And so we want to extend that opportunity to as many of you as possible. So after the in-person symposium at USC, the Keck School of Medicine, we are planning on having you guys present virtually as well. So it's going to be different people. So everyone gets a chance to present. Um, and that virtual symposium will be a little longer. So we'll have a lot more time to present and everyone will get a chance. So when you do submit, I'll have a specification for if you're submitting and you want to present at the USC Keck School of Medicine or the virtual symposium. There'll be two separate forms. You can choose to do both because you might not get selected for the USC Keck School of Medicine. If you are submitting for the Keck School of Medicine, I'll ask that your research again is more substantial, is better, more in depth and detailed. For people who have done or are doing independent research, that's an example of something that might have more, I guess, substance to be presented at the Keck School of Medicine. For those of you doing literature reviews, if your literature review is really substantial and you think it's really, really strong, you've gathered all this evidence and your results are really, really, I guess, like extraordinary, you should submit to the Keck School of Medicine. Again, it's not like if you're only doing independent research, you can get submitted. It's not like that. It's just those research types are typically more substantial. And then the virtual symposium, anybody can present there. Again, we'll only select a handful of you. We can't have 200 people present. That Zoom meeting will be like 24 hours, right? So we're hoping for maybe a 1 hour, maybe 2 hour meeting, so as many of you guys as possible can present. And so, yeah, so I'm getting some clarification. Yeah. So in the in-person symposium, it will be like a hybrid type of thing. We'll have it live streamed so people can watch. And for those of you in groups who some of you can attend and some of you can't, then you can present virtually at the in-person symposium. And if your research is super substantial, then we can have you present entirely virtually. If it's like a one-person thing, if there's five people presenting virtually, it's kind of it doesn't really work. So if your research is super great and you want to present, at the USC symposium, then you might be able to present virtually. So again, if you can't attend, that's still a possibility, but your research has to be like top notch. And for the literature reviews that I'm guiding you guys through, it's probably not going to be that level. Um, but again, take your chances. It's best for you guys to present. This is your as an opportunity. We want as many people there at USC as possible. It's the first time we've ever done something like this. It's the first time that high school students have been presenting neuroscience research as part of an official club, right? And yes, the research poster does include photos. So I'm going to go over that in a second. So what are the differences? Sorry, I kind of rambled there. The paper is, again, the paper everyone's going to complete. It's your full research typed, right? It's pretty much what you guys read on I think our first meeting, I sent you guys that paper. It's just words and then there's figures with images, but it's just your complete research. Like everything is there. The only things that aren't there are your research question and hypothesis. And same with your poster. They're not going to be on your poster. Some posters require it. For our paper and poster, you're not going to have your research question and hypothesis. Your slideshow is your research presentation, and it's mostly pictures. So you're going to go everything very, very simplistically, and you're only going to go over the important parts. And with slideshows, you want mostly images, right? If you have a lot of words, it's not going to really work. People are going to get uninterested. They're not going to participate. They're not going to listen. They're not going to really understand. It's like 90% images. And as well as that, you're going to have your research question and hypothesis. This is the only place you're going to have your research question and hypothesis because that's something you want your viewer to understand. For your paper and poster, that's not really necessary. And most official papers and posters, they don't actually have that. And your poster is just your research summarized on a one-page poster, and it has each section, but everything there is shortened. So like only the most important substantial things are on your poster. So for an example, I have the paper and poster template ready, and I'll send that to you guys when we're done with this section. And you guys can start working on that. Because I know a lot of you have drafted on Google Docs, on your Apple Notes or whatever like that. You've drafted your research question, your hypothesis, and your introduction. So I want an official place for you guys to actually write that down. So this is kind of what the paper looks like. This is just a template right now. You guys are going to have your title, the author or authors, if you're working in a group, and the date completed. So you're not going to put the date yet. That's when you're completely done with your research. And then there are subsections. So there's the abstract, and then below that, I'll have your introduction, methods, etc. Here is an example of the slideshow. Again, it's just slide, right? Your title slide with the title and your authors. And then from then on, it's just every single part. So you have like a slide for your introduction, a slide for your figures, your methods, etc. And then here is an example of the poster. So it does have the USC Neuro Scholars logo. It has the introduction and the results and stuff, each section, and you'll have information in that section. Again, it looks kind of big, but I promise you it's super small when you add the text. Like the text is quite big. And so only the most important things are going to go here. And you can move them around. Like if your introduction is longer than your methods, you can move that down. If your references are not that long, you can move that down. You can play with this as much as you want, as long as you have the basics. You have these 5 sections. Sorry. And then you have the title and authors and obviously our logo. So I wanted to go over a little bit on how to effectively read a research paper because that's pretty much all you guys are doing to complete your literature review, right? Sorry, give me 1 second, guys. Sorry. um, so the most important thing, or one of my biggest suggestions, and this is kind of something that's been repeated through researchers that have been, going through this program and the professors, write as you read. So I'm pretty sure you've heard of the phrase that you should note take while you're, in a lecture or something because it helps you memorize better or helps you remember better. And that's true. But I think with a research paper, that's like really, really effective because when you just read a research paper, most of the time you're doing it because you have to, not because you want to. Sometimes, yeah, you might want to read a research paper, but most of the time it's because, oh, I need to summarize this, or I need to read this for my paper, or I need to read this for my meta-analysis. Whatever it may be, you're not really reading it because you want to. It's not a book. And so you might be reading it and you're kind of bored. You don't really understand. So you're skimming it. And then eventually you get to a certain section. You're like, what did I just read? Right? You're not actively reading. And I think when you're writing down what you're reading, it helps you understand that so much better. And you don't have to write down every single thing. Just write down like important things, like some terms you might have noticed, some things you might have not understood, some things you might have understood. And then you want to start from top to bottom, right? You want to first of all start from the abstract. If you don't read the abstract first, you're not going to really understand. I think the abstract is the most simple part of a research paper. It really, really narrows down things and keeps it kind of vague. So it's really easy to understand. If you're having trouble understanding certain parts, like the methods and results, then I'd say sway from that and start reading the discussion. So your discussion, for discussions of any research paper, it should really explain in depth what the researchers achieved and what their results meant. So if you're looking at the results and you kind of don't understand what it means, you should go to the discussion because the discussion tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And if it doesn't, then use AI. So some of you might not like AI, but I think AI is a super useful tool. AI training is where it gets really, you know, there's issues there. But for the generative AI that already exists, I think that AI is super useful as a tool, especially in research. And this is not just for the high schoolers. Professors use it. The professors that mentor this club, they use it. The researchers that you guys read from the Cognitive Journal, they use AI. Pretty much all researchers use AI now as a tool. It's super useful. It's pretty much integrated in every single research tool or analysis tool. AI is super useful. When you're reading through a research paper, and I'm pretty sure when you guys read through that research paper about the spiraling, you didn't understand every single term there. There was a lot of terms that you might have not understood. And this is kind of a more basic research paper. There's research papers that involve neurobiology. And if you didn't already know, when you go into biology papers or neurobiology papers, they talk about all these sort of, proteins, cells, random names that you guys have no idea what they mean. Um, and you're not going to understand that unless you ask questions. And you don't have a researcher always available to just talk to or ask a question. That's when you use AI. Again, I gave you guys consensus AI. I think that's really helpful. I like consensus AI. You can just use ChatGPT or Gemini too. It's whatever your preference is. Consensus does a pretty good job at working with research tools. Um, okay, we'll move on to research question mistakes. So this is something that was really big. You guys can always send me your research questions, your hypotheses, and I will get to you guys and I'll help you guys formulate your question, your hypothesis, your introduction, or just like narrow down your research problem. Something that happened was I had a lot of people messaging me their questions and they sent over the question and it was kind of formulated like this. It was like blah, blah, blah question, and they had comma and then blah, blah, blah question. This is kind of bad. You don't want your research question to be two questions just smushed together. I know you guys might want to do research where you ask two questions and you put two topics together, but this is kind of bad because it takes away from one of your questions. So what you want to do is combine them. You want to really just take one part, the more important part, and then kind of try to implement the other question into it. Even if it's a little longer, that's a better question than having comma and. I don't want to see the comma and thing, because then you're just asking two questions. You should only have one research question. If you want to add more depth to your question, try to implement it. Don't do the comma and. Okay. If I see the comma and, I'm going to tell you to change your question. Um, and then question terms. So like why, how, what, etc. If you don't have this in your question, I don't understand how you have a question. I had some people send me over questions that just had a question mark in the end. They didn't have that question term. This is kind of simple. Just make sure you have your question terms. And lastly, this one is kind of important. Don't have your question be too broad or way too specific. So good research is typically narrowed down to like a specific topic, but you don't want to be too specific. Like I don't want to see several protein names in your research question, and you're talking about what this does to this and what that does to that, and you just keep going, right? When your research question is super long and super specific, it starts not making sense to your audience. And that's the whole point of your question. And especially for you guys, because you guys are going to be presenting, or most of you will be presenting, your question should be understandable, but it shouldn't be too broad. If your research question is super broad, like it's one very, very basic question, like how does this influence this, and it doesn't go in depth, then your research itself is not going to be substantial because your research is so broad, there's no real meaning to it. And this is another thing. Your research question should be based on your research problem. So, for those of you who might have not attended last meeting or did not watch the recording fully, I talked about research problems. That's what what's influencing you to do this sort of research. So, for example, I don't know if Lydia is here today. I'm going to use Lydia's example from last week, which was how AI usage is leading to the lack of critical thinking skills. And what that essentially is, the problem is that AI usage is so prominent nowadays. And I'm not talking about using AI for research tools. That's a different topic entirely. I'm talking about using AI to ask very basic questions. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the kind of jokes that people are using AI to ask people out, or they're using AI to figure out how to talk to their teachers. They're like, "How do I talk to this girl?" And they ask an AI a question, and it sounds like a joke, but there are people actually doing that, and that's what the lack of critical thinking skills are, right? They don't know how to ask questions anymore. They don't know how to talk anymore. They rely on AI for everything. And so again, that's just one topic, but what that topic is that there's a problem and the research is focused on that problem. If you don't have a problem, you could have research focused on something that's kind of narrow and not researched enough. That's another type of topic where there's not enough research going on in this sort of area. So you want to go into that. But research problems are your biggest method to getting substantial research. Okay. What is bibliometrics? So this is something that we're gonna have you guys implement into your research. Can I get a show of hands, but with the raise hand feature, who has heard of bibliometrics? Pretty sure many of you have. Um, right. So I have a lot of people understand what bibliometrics are.
No, of my jeans. No, just now, Mom. I lost
I
it
think
just now.
I think someone's unmuted. You're talking about genes. It's okay. Just make sure you guys are on mute. Okay, so there are a lot of you who understand what bibliometrics are, but I see a lot of hands that aren't up. Like actually a majority of you with hands that are down. So bibliometrics are the statistical and quantitative analysis of studies. Um, what does that mean? I just kind of said a bunch of words. It's kind of like an analysis of the background and references. This is more of your reference section. What authors, what journals, what first authors, what institutions, etc. Um, and so this can add a little bit of reliability to your research because it shows that you've understood the background of your research, not just the content, the authors, the researchers, the journals, etc. And this is one reason I asked you guys to formulate your keywords. So I think I wasn't super clear on that. I kind of just said it on the meeting. I didn't make that an announcement. One thing I want you guys to do, and this is something to take note of, is to come up with three keywords for your research. So for example, if I did research on, let's say, neuroinflammation in the brain for Alzheimer's disease, this was a topic I did before. My three keywords could be like neuroinflammation, Alzheimer's disease, and neurodegeneration. And one common like mistake is that keywords have to be one word. That's not true. Like if you're focusing on OCD, your research keyword could be obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's technically two words because obsessive and compulsive are together, right? You can have multiple words be one keyword. Just don't make it like a phrase, right? Like Alzheimer's disease, that's two words. That can be a keyword. Um, so yeah, so I'm gonna go over that, what bibliometrics is. I'm gonna actually show you guys an example. Give me 1 second. So with bibliometrics, there are different tools used to analyze bibliometrics. So for many of you, you might have heard of RStudio with bibliometrics and BiblioShiny. I'm not going to teach you guys RStudio. We simply don't have enough time for that. And I think that those lessons and courses that teach you RStudio within a month or a couple weeks, they don't do a really good job. They give you like a template for R code and you don't really understand how to use R. You might have learned to copy and paste a couple like scripts, a couple lines of code, and then you don't really understand R at the end of that. And I've seen that be a very common thing for people who do R courses or a program that teaches R. They don't really understand R after that. if you don't understand, sorry, I keep saying R. R is a programming language used a lot in research and something really important and useful to understand. If you don't know how to use it, that's completely okay. I'd look at more effective courses from actual universities or institutions. If you're doing a program or a simple like online course on learning R, you might not learn it effectively enough, and I wouldn't suggest that for you guys. So I am going to quickly screen share. Um, okay. Okay, so I have PubMed open. Before I go into the bibliometrics, I want to show you guys the template. I think this is the slides. It should be this. So again, this is what our poster looks like. You guys can type here, and there's you guys put text boxes under here and type under there. Your title and author go here. Simple. This is what your research paper template looks like. Your abstract, your introduction. They're not all separate pages, and against what people typically think, your references doesn't have to be a separate page entirely. It's not like a paper you're making for a high school, research paper where everything's centered and there's like a works cited or references page that's completely separate. Your references don't have to be a separate page because when you make a research paper, kind of like the one you guys read, it's not formatted like this. It's formatted in a way where um, everything's together and your references are on that same page. So I do suggest that you have your researches on a separate page. It just looks nicer, right? Like it looks nicer to have a completely separate references page. You don't have to do that. Up to you. I would suggest it, but it's not necessary. And for each of these subsections, they don't have to be separate pages. I just did this for you guys to have a little bit of organization. One thing I want to mention is the numbering system. So you guys might have noticed this in research papers you've read. There are numbering systems. Your abstract and your references don't have numbers, but every other section does because sometimes these sections have their own subsections. And one of the most prominent things is in the results section where you have like a 3.1 and that's your figure one or whatever, right? Because results are your figures mostly. This is where you put your sections in. But it's not just for results. You might have it in your introduction, your methods. Like in your introduction, you might talk about like your objective, right? Some people have objective in their research section as a separate section entirely, like it would be two dot objectives or like aim of research. Um, it doesn't have to be like that. You can talk about whatever your subsections are up to you. Just make sure your subsections are important and they're necessary. Like you need a subsection there. You shouldn't have subsection. You shouldn't have like 8 subsections. I shouldn't see 1.8. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't just put subsections for the purpose of having subsections. If that makes sense. So again, this is the template. I'll share both of these with you guys, so you guys can start working on that and putting stuff on there. I won't send the slideshow over yet. I'm still working on that. But then also, I don't want you guys to start your slideshow just yet because if you start making your slideshow now, you're going to get confused. You're not going to focus on your research. You're going to focus on making things look pretty. That's not the point. Okay, sorry, I've rambled on too much. We're going to go into the bibliometrics section. So with bibliometrics, again, you have your keywords. So I like PubMed. There are different databases you could use. There's things called Scopus, Web of Science, but those are typically inaccessible without paying, or you need an institution or institution email, right? And so, sorry, I see a bunch of questions in the chat. I'll get to that after. Um, right now, we're just going to focus on the bibliometrics section. So I give you guys the example of the one I did with neuroinflammation, right? And you can have Alzheimer's disease, and then let's say neurodegeneration. And don't put the and. There shouldn't be like an and here. It should just be the keyword itself, right? And then you just click search. And this is a great thing about PubMed. It just tells you and gives you all these research papers that have your keyword within them. And from here, you would click save. And then from here, you do, typically I just do all results on this page, or you can like select a couple or select a few um, because it will give you a lot. But with this, I'll show you guys its specific website to use. So you're going to go in and click PubMed. You can click CSV and it will give you a nice little file that's like a sheet, like an Excel file kind of, and it'll have everything nicely done for you. I already downloaded it for this, and I also downloaded the PubMed, so I'm not going to click create file, but that's what it would look like. And so this is the website I have you guys using. There are actual platforms like Voss Viewer or again BiblioShiny in R. That's up to you. If you want to use that, you are completely free to use that. The reason I'm suggesting just this is because it's more simple. It's, it's online and it's free. And so what you would do is you would take your file. Sorry, I'm like lagging right now. Are you guys able to hear me and everything? I just want to make sure that you guys are able to hear me and stuff. Am I like frozen or am I clear and everything? Okay. I'm like freezing up on my screen, but it's whatever. So I'm gonna open the file I just had, and I'm gonna just drag it over the PubMed section here. And so it'll go over here, it shows you my keywords. And then I would just click combine and analyze file. This is the only online tool I could find that's free and that works. So if you find something better, let me know. And there are platforms. So I will go into platforms at a later time. Like, again, I mentioned BiblioShiny on R or Voz Viewer. Those are typically a little more advanced, but they require you to download something. So I don't want you guys to do that. I want this to be just completely online and accessible to everybody. And so here it shows you the documents, the time span of the documents, how many sources, all the authors, right? And it shows you when these were produced. Again, there is an interpret system, and I'll click that later. But you can kind of see like a lot of the things here, like what are these mostly about, like nerve degeneration. Um, what is like the interdisciplinary like mix of the research papers that are and analyzed, the journal fits. So this is actually something that I want you guys to like specifically look at, the journals that have been worked on with this specific research, right? These are important journals, and this is what bibliometrics really is. It's just like the analysis of the journals and authors. The policies is kind of not important. Here you have like a map. This is kind of trying to generate like an image for you guys. It's kind of hard to use this though. But here you can kind of see what the journals are, the authors, and the keywords. Again, if you want to use this figure, it is a figure you can use. It's not kind of that great. Again, journals, laws. I think this is where it gets more important. The journals, right? The sources. It shows you how many times they were used, and then the most prominent ones. So this is what your bibliometrics would look like. And I'll show you guys how to create a figure in Google Sheets. You'd essentially just put in this information and create like a bar graph. And it'll show you, it looks like this basically. You can also kind of use this as a figure if you really want it. It looks pretty nice and it shows you everything you need, the journal, the amount, and then it kind of shows you like the bar graph kind of. Just make sure you have your labels, your titles and everything. Your authors, again, this is also very important. This shows you how many documents they were involved in. It shows you the most prominent authors essentially. And again, this is your bibliometrics. Keywords, the most important keywords that they use. Again, the keywords we used were neuroinflammation, Alzheimer's disease, and neurodegeneration. But it shows you what other keywords they might have used. So they tested on animals, they looked at humans, etc. I like this one. It shows you what countries the research is from. This is something you could include. I kind of like this because it shows you how very broad and diverse the research is. So that's something you can use. Again, it shows you here, etc. Right? So this is a free website. You guys can use it. I will send you guys the link on Slack and also just paste the link over for you guys in the chat right now. Okay, I'm lagging like really badly for some reason. If you guys can hear me, please let me know if there are issues with my connection. Let me know. Like I can't really tell on my screen. I'm lagging pretty badly, but if I'm like clear and fine on your guys' screen, just let me know. So that's the link for this bibliometrics tool. Okay, I'm glitchy. I'm gonna stop sharing really quickly. I think it might be that. I'm not too sure. Okay, that's much better. Yeah, I apologize for that. If you guys did not understand me, I was just going over the website. I think the website was making me lag a little bit, so I apologize for that. I think I'm clear now. So, yeah, that website is free. I posted the link in the chat. I'm gonna send you guys the link for the template and the paper and poster template over Slack, so you guys can access it from there. And so those are basically that's basically what we have for now. Your bibliometrics. So I want you guys to come up with keywords. If you don't see the link, here, I'll send the link once more. I don't know if you guys might not be able to see it. Right. Your keywords, again, keep working on your introductions and then start filling in the poster and paper. Those are your basic tasks. I'm going to send over the submission links for the your hypothesis, your research question, and your keywords over on Slack after we're done with the meeting. Your introduction shouldn't be fully complete yet, so that's not something you're going to submit, but you should have your research question and hypothesis pretty much formulated. If you want help, reorganizing your question or rewording it, you guys can always message me. And again, use AI as your tool. One thing I didn't mention is that some people have written really like informal tools, or sorry, informal questions or hypotheses. You should use scientific language. It should look like a top tier researcher's question or hypothesis. You have AI as your tool. I wouldn't say make your question completely through AI, but use AI to help guide you write your question and such. If you're writing words like in your question, like how does this like this, something like that affect this, and you're being really informal and you're not using proper grammar, that's not good, right? You don't want to do that. Um, and before I go into questions, I do have an announcement. um, I wanted to just ask really quickly. I'm gonna ask that you DM me if this is a problem. If we were to lose the USC name, would that be a problem for you guys? I want you to DM me if that's a problem. Just if it is. If it's not a problem, you don't have to DM me. If it is a problem, DM me, let me know. If that's a problem for you, it's completely okay if that is a problem for you. If we did lose the USC name, it's you know okay. I'm not really getting in DMs, so I'm hoping that's not a problem. We're not losing the USC name. Sorry, I'm like making it was so corny, but we are officially sponsored by the USC Zilkha Neurogenetic Institute. We're officially affiliated. The director of licensing and trademark has approved our affiliation, so that's a huge milestone. I really wanted to make that announcement. That's something that we started this club as just something with professors, but now we're officially sponsored and affiliated with USC and their Institutional Department of Neuroscience. I will send you guys over the Zilkha Neurogenetic Institute link. You guys can check it out. We aren't on there just yet, but we are going to get there. And officially, we are soon going to get maybe a usc.edu link. That's something we're working on with their department. But yeah, and we are the first ever high school group to be a part of something like this. They don't typically have that type of, um, they don't typically have high school groups working with USC officially. That's something that we worked on and we got expedited just for you guys. I know how much that the name brand really means. I know you guys didn't want to DM me, but I know that in your mind you're like, damn, we're losing the USC name. That's kind of unfortunate. But don't worry, we have the USC name and we're officially able to use it. So that shouldn't be a problem. So from now on, we're able to use that name. And that pretty much concludes everything I want to go over in our meeting. I'll have the submission links and the links for you guys to view after that. I will just take questions. I'm going to first start with the questions that were mentioned in the chat. I know we had a couple there. The research poster does include photos. So under the results section, you'll have your figures. In some of your other sections, you may include pictures. Like in your references, you might want to include something about your bibliometrics, or in your methods, you might include like how you got your research information, right? So that's something. For your pictures of your research, in your slideshow, I want pictures as much as possible. And that's something you might include, like pictures of you working. So if you're working in a group, I want you guys to take pictures or maybe even videos of you guys working on a Zoom call or Instagram call, whatever it might be, FaceTime. If you're working, take a picture. And it might seem a little awkward, like you're taking pictures of you guys working, you guys aren't preparing to be just like, you're not preparing to be looked at, but um, that picture itself, it shows like reliability of what you're saying because it shows that you guys are actually working in a group. That's something I had to do with the professors. I had to take pictures of us working. It's a little awkward, but that's something important you should do. Um, for the templates, I want you guys to use those templates. You guys can do another paper or document on the side, but for the submission purposes, you guys are going to be using that template for the paper and poster. The poster, whenever you guys do present, it has to have our USC Neuro Scholars logo on the top. That's just an institutional thing. And then the colorway, it has to be with the red, etc. But you guys can move around the text and such. Um, how many pages should each section be? For the research paper, I suggested like the max amount of pages you should have is 20. Your paper should not be that long, okay? It shouldn't be anywhere near that long. Um, if it is that long, maybe consider shortening it. But you might have an on average around 5 pages. That's where like I'm suggesting you should be because your research shouldn't be super long. 5 pages is around like the average your paper should be. 3 to 5 is like the sweet spot. Um,
I'm sorry, is that per section or for the whole thing? For
no, no, no,
the
for
three to
the
five
whole
pages.
thing. For the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
For each section, around 1 page, less than a page, a little more than a page. It should just be around a page, a little less, a little more. It shouldn't be too much. Like your abstract, 1 paragraph, okay? Your introduction, it should be a little long. I want you guys to focus on, again, that research problem. The professors are really looking at what problem you're trying to solve. I can't emphasize this enough. Have a research problem, and that's going to be your introduction. Your methods might not be too long. It might be like 2 or 3 paragraphs. It's just talking about how you got your research, what keywords you used. You use PubMed, obviously. If you're not using PubMed, if you're using a different database, that's up to you. Put it in your methods, right? And so it's not going to be too long. Okay, one question, Megan, I am going to answer that. One question I got a lot was deadlines. Um, for those of you presenting at the USC Tech School of Medicine, I mentioned that you can present your full research or the progress of your research. So it might not have to be complete. The progress is more so for people who are doing independent research. You can't really expedite that because you're working with a different professor or a different institution. That's not really, I can't really control that. Maybe you can't even control that because it's with your professor. So if you have enough substantial information and research done with an independent project and you want to submit your progress, which is actually what I did last year when I submitted my research. I was working with Professor Winston. We weren't fully done, but we had pretty substantial progress. I presented that and I was there, like their keynote essentially. I was at the top. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you have to have your research done. But your research will be completely done. Like the capstone deadline, like officially, is at the end of September. And the reason for that is by like the start of October, this program will be complete, right? It is meant to be a summer program. The capstones just bleed into school a little bit, or like, the fall season. And so by the end of August, I hope that you guys have pretty much most of your research done and you're able to present at the USC Tech School of Medicine. The virtual symposium will be sometime mid or late September. And so the reason I'm not making it like a complete deadline at the end of August is because most of you are going to be presenting at the virtual symposium and you guys will have extra time to work on that uh, during September. And so I wouldn't focus on deadlines right now. There's not much of a deadline. The only deadlines will be mentioned on Slack channel, like the summary was a deadline, the introduction and stuff. You guys are working on that, and then from today, it's going to be your research question, your hypothesis, your keywords, etc. I'll mention when something has a strict deadline. Your capstones, you guys have a lot of time at the current moment. But if you're looking for a specific deadline, I'd say end of September is when you guys are done with your capstone projects because we're going to be working on the mini publications, symposium, etc. Um, and so, Sophia, for literature reviews, you are able to do narrative reviews. Um, the substance part is meant for presenting. So it's totally up to you. It has to be some sort of review. You have to have an analysis of papers. So if you want to do a narrative review, that's completely okay. If we deem your research substantial enough, you'll be chosen. If it's not, it's not. And that goes for anybody. Like if you're doing independent research, your independent research still might not be substantial enough, right? It really depends how much work and emphasis you put into your research and what kind of problem it solves. Again, I'm emphasizing the research problem. If you're solving a problem, that's like the best research you can do. That's what the professors want to see. Um, Nahum, for everyone raising their hand, I will get to you guys. These are just like important questions I see in the chat. For meeting dates, they stop in August, and they'll be optional in September. Like I might host an optional meeting in September to help review you guys' work. Or if I have the professors available in September, I'm sure that's what you guys want. You guys want to meet with the professors. You guys want to network. You guys want to have them answer your questions. I will see if we can schedule meetings in September for that. But we won't have any mandatory meetings in September because this program, as much as meeting goes, end in August, right? Because we'll have our capstone presentation at the USC School of Medicine in the very beginning of September. Sorry, for those of you raising your hand, I'll get to you guys now. Ruthie, if you have a question.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that independent research projects would be preferred because they're harder to do and they'd be more substantial typically. What would make, like, let's say I was doing a literature review, what would make it substantial? Like, how can I make it like stand out a little bit?
So, sorry, before I answer your question, I'm gonna preface. We're going into questioning section now. So if you guys are, if you have to leave, you guys are free to leave. And if you don't have any questions or you don't want to see and stick around for the questions, you're free to leave. So just gonna make that clear. Bye, everybody. You guys can say bye or whatever. You guys are free to leave. So I'll give you guys like a minute. So if you guys want to leave, go ahead. Thank you guys so much for coming. It means a lot that you guys are here, and I hope that we're, as much, we're staying as up to par as you can with your guys' needs. Okay. So while everyone is leaving, I'll get to your question. So with with independent research, the reason it's more substantial is because you're not just doing an analysis of other people's papers, you're actually doing something unique. And that's the term I want you to focus on. What's unique or what's, breakthrough. So with your research, because you're analyzing other people's research, a literature review is typically harder to make very substantial because that type of research has already been done, right? If your research is like super unique, like you found something really specific in this paper and something specific in this paper, and you're able to combine that information to come up with a really good review or analysis. And again, the problem, like it really helps you find or work towards a solution for your research problem. Like, this medical problem is affecting people. I found this really important information from these two papers, these three papers, and I combined them. Here's the pathway we can work through. That's a good literature review because you found a solution or you're working towards a solution and it's unique, right? So again, research problem and how unique or new or extraordinary your research is, right? A lot of people are doing really simple analyses, and that's completely okay. This is, again, very introductory. It's just to get you to work with research. If you're unable to do something really breakthrough, which most people won't be able to, that's completely okay. I hope that answered your question. Is that okay? Convi?
Oh, I was just wondering about the bibliometrics. How will that work for independent research projects? Will that be in part of like the introduction for the literature review, or basically any project that's not a literature review?
Yeah. So if you're working on independent research with a mentor, I'd ask your mentor, right? They know best. If you're working on an independent research paper alone, it is up to you, right? The keywords are something you decide. So if your independent research has a very specific topic, like let's say you're focusing on psychological disorders, right? Let's say you're talking about, let's say Parkinson's disease. It's a disorder, but it's also like a physical immobility, disability. So your keywords might be like Parkinson's disease, and like you might talk about a specific part within the brain, like a specific brain region, and then you might talk about like disabilities, etc. If you think that you have three keywords that really describe your project, you can just put those keywords into PubMed and then use those papers. Because I'm pretty sure even if you're doing independent research, you're still looking at other people's research papers to help you get like a sort of foundation. If you're not, again, that's up to you, but I would suggest you do that. And that's one way you can do bibliometrics. And that would be typically part of like your methods. You put that in your methods. And then part of your bibliometrics results, like I showed you that website, I showed you like the countries, the authors, the journals. You'd put that in your results. So that'd be a specific subsection of your results where you go over the bibliometrics. For independent research papers or independent research projects, that's not necessary. You don't have to do bibliometrics as part of an independent research project because you're not really doing review, you're more so doing something alone on your own, right? You're doing a specific you're researching through a specific method that is not just looking at research papers, if that makes sense. Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Got it. Of course. Shruti?
I have two questions. So they're both like quick though. So my first one is, do we have to do like two out of the three, like a poster? I'm sorry, my bird's really loud. A poster and a presentation, or like, is it okay to just? Because I just feel like I'm kind of wrapping up a research like paper right now, but I'd prefer to like, if like for submitting for like the symposium, I prefer to do a presentation. So would I just be able to like do the presentation with like the USC format, or would I have to like reformat my paper to and submit that with like the USC paper?
I see. So we do want everyone to submit a paper and poster as well. It's just like for our like our official, like for every single person or every single group, we have these three things or those two things. The presentation again is separate, like the slideshow is just for those who want to present. But we want to show that everyone is able to complete these two things as part of a task. And so I asked that I know you have since you're working on independent research and you have your own research paper, I say just like copy and paste parts of it. Like the introduction, you can copy paste in the introduction. If you're having trouble copy and pasting figures and stuff, you can like screenshot and then put it in. It doesn't have to look too perfect, right? It just has to be part of that template. The research poster, have you worked on a research poster before? No, okay. So with your research, I want you to just focus on the most important parts and then make a text box under that. I'll add the text box. It's not there for some reason. I'll add the text box in the poster and you'll just put it the most important information in that, right? And your text is going to be quite small because there's not enough space. And then for your figures, you're just going to copy and paste them under the results section. And then your results will just be like explaining like very vaguely what your results mean. Your poster shouldn't be super specific because there's not enough space for it to be super specific. Um, for your references, this is something that was uh, this was a problem for a lot of people was fitting all their references into their poster because they might have a lot of references. I'd say do try to size it down so you have all your references. And if you can't fit all your references, just use the ones that you used that are mentioned in the poster. Because for independent research projects, you might have all this information, but the information you actually put on your poster is from only a couple of your references. So you can tone down the references that aren't used in the poster. I know for some people, they don't know which specific references are used for which specific parts because they have a mentor or they're working with a group. So if that's your case, I'd really try to, ask around and figure out because we do want you to submit a paper and poster. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then my second question was in terms of like reproduction figures, because like I do have a lot of references for mine. I'm assuming that like we would have to focus mostly on like either emailing for like um permission or like open or like looking for paper, like looking at papers that are open permission for reproduction of figures.
Yeah. So if you're reproducing figures, um, for our cases, because again, this is a high school group, I'm not going to hold you to it on the fair use. I'm not going to hold you on the legals of it all. Um, that's not good practice. You know, you should reach out. You should email the institution or the authors and try to obtain permission to use their imagery, use their figures. But if you are doing an analysis and can't find a way to get those figures and they're not responding to you, they haven't responded by the deadline, and you have no other figure and you really wanted to use that, I'm just going to go ahead and say that it's okay for you to use that for presentation purposes. Just make a note of it, like make a note on the bottom or something like this figure is from X paper and we weren't able to, obtain permission to reproduce the figure, blah, blah, blah. Like make it really small so people don't notice it. But just put where it's from. You always source things. As long as you're sourcing, it should be okay.
Okay, so just to like I don't know, go over the whole thing. So we have to do all three, like presentation, poster, and paper. But like po presentation is specifically like if you're submitting to like for symposium, and then for figures, try to get the like try and email. But if it's not, then just source it on the presentation.
Yeah, so hold on, sorry. For the figures, I'm going to have to in a later meeting, I'm going to show you guys how to actually work with like Google Sheets and create your own figures. Um, for for reproducing figures, yeah, try to obtain permission. If you can't, just source. if that makes sense.
Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Um, Piyush?
Yeah. Hi. I was just wondering, like, let's say like we're sorry, I don't know how to say this. Like, we don't get like to present online for the symposium. Like, we're gonna like, sorry, I don't remember if you mentioned this or not. Like, we're still gonna get like a mini publication, right?
Yeah, so I actually spoke about this with the professors. For mini publications, we're trying to have all of you guys as have a mini publication, and it will just be your research poster because the slideshow and paper will be like too long. You'll have to like like scroll through. It's kind of long, so we want everyone's research poster, and that's the reason we're having you guys do them is for the mini publication. But one thing to keep in mind is that there are a lot of you, and so it is our goal to support every single one of you guys and have all of your posters on our page. But if we're unable to, which at the current moment we're not sure, I'll let you guys know at a later date. We'll be choosing based on like who is presentation ready, who has the most substantial research, and pretty much most of you should be. Like we're gonna be able to host most of you guys up there.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. Also,
Yeah,
will
of
you like
course.
help us like, sorry, were you saying something?
No, no, go ahead.
Yeah. So like, let's say like we want to publish in like a different journal. Like, would you like help us like guide us on that?
Yeah, I can definitely help you with that, and I can get give you some guidance from the professor's point of view as well. Like I, go through them. I'll be like your little liaison, and I'll give you personal advice as well because we are working on publication right now. For publication though, because you asked that, and everyone else here probably wants you. Everyone wants to get publicated, right? Everyone wants to be published in a journal. um we can't offer like direct help with you getting published. Like I can't help edit me and the professor. We can't edit your paper. We can't, you know, make it look nice and pretty for
Yeah.
your publishing. I can just give you like advice. That's really all I can offer. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Just like advice, like just like tips and tricks, not like one-on-one editing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got you.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Got you. Thank you too. Joanna or Joanna.
Yeah, Joanna. Hi, so you mentioned this before, but do you mind like clarifying what you mentioned about groups presenting the capstone projects for the online symposium? Like,
For
because
the
I have a
online or
larger
in
group of
person?
online,
Okay.
because we have a larger group of four, but a team member isn't able to make it. So like for the in-person one.
Oh, you mean in person?
No, like if our group wanted to present online because one of our members isn't able to commute to the in-person one, then how would that work? Like, is there a certain amount of projects that we're looking to include for the online meeting? Or,
Would would three of you be able to commute there and then just one person can't?
yeah,
To
I believe
USC
so.
Tech School of Medicine?
Yeah.
So, okay. So for the in-person symposium, it's like a hybrid. And I mentioned online presenting, right? So if three of you are, and that's what I mentioned. So if let's say one of your group members are unable to attend, but the rest of you are, we don't want to punish you three. We don't also want to punish that one person who can't commute it. It's neither of you guys' fault. So in that case, we would have three of you go in person and present, and virtually we'll have on Zoom that other person in the background, and they'll present
Oh,
their part virtually.
I see. Okay, that makes
Okay,
more sense. All right,
got it.
thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you, Joanna. Delena, did I pronounce that right?
Delina. Yeah,
Delena.
close. So I don't know if you mentioned or not, but like you were showing like the research paper and everything, like the templates. Do you have like a Google Drive folder or something that we can access with that has everything with like the presentation poster and paper?
Yeah, it's currently in a Google Drive link. I just haven't shared it yet. After the meeting, I'll get all of that uh, like shared with everyone, all the technical stuff, and then I'll share the Google Drive folder with you guys, and it'll have um, the paper and poster for now, and then I'll add the slideshow at a later date, probably by next meeting, because you guys shouldn't be working on the slideshow just yet. But yeah, there will be a Google Drive folder. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Awesome. I don't see any more hands raised. Does anyone else have any more questions? Okay, so I don't see any more questions. I'm gonna look through the little chats. Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat either. So before I do end the meeting, I want to say that um, again, I want to go over your task really quickly. You're going to work on, if you haven't already, which you should have, but it's okay if you haven't, your research question and your hypothesis. I'm going to send over a submission link on Slack where you guys will submit that. And then your keywords. So I'll probably just make one Google form so you don't have to answer three separate forms. It's just going to ask for your question, your hypothesis, and your three keywords. And you'll submit that over to me. Um, and that's just so I can see that you guys are progressing through your project. Keep working on your introductions. I've mentioned this like 300 times already. Have a research problem, please. Again, like even for like the other students, like whenever you're watching a research presentation, when they have a problem that like it's one, it's meaningful, but two, it's like, oh, I understand this. Like I understand that that's a problem. It's like, okay, this research actually has a little bit more basis to it now. It's not just research done to be research. There's something that they're solving or there's something that they're focusing on. And I think most of you are pretty good with that, but I had some people message me their research like questions and hypotheses, and it had like really nothing to do with a problem. Another thing I mentioned this earlier with another student was research that isn't really focused on, right? There's two parts of the research thing that we focus on, which is substance, but also uniqueness. Like if your research is something that's like really extraordinary and new, like people haven't done it before, and you're researching something that hasn't really been researched a lot, that's something you can do. That's also one way to do it, but I really want you guys to focus on that research problem. That's again, professors are looking for that. Two, I will send over videos for you guys. I think it's just one video for now. I'll see about the second video if I will send that over. The video is just how to effectively read a research paper. That paper was sent before and to other students, and it's really helpful. I think it helped me a little bit. It really would help you read a research paper. Um, Again, use AI as your tool if you're having trouble, and if you have time, once you've done those things, you watch the video and again, if you haven't done your summary, please do your summary. And you've submitted your question, your hypothesis, and keywords, and you're working on your introduction. You can start translating that into your paper and poster. Like I'd start working on your introduction in the paper template, just because you wouldn't have to copy and paste things over at a later time. You can just write notes in your paper as well, as long as before you submit it, you delete all your notes and you make it formal and everything. There are the paper template right in that. It'll make things easier. And you can start working on your poster. You guys won't have much yet, but you can put a little bit. If you have like your introduction done, you can put your introduction in, right? And references. Have your references APA style and numbered. So it'd be like one, two, three, etc., based on alphabetical order of the author's last name, because it should go last name, comma, first name, etc., 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 or it should be like last initial, comma. However it is, it should be APA style. If you go to PubMed, you can click Cite APA and it will generate it for you automatically. I like PubMed style. I think you should do PubMed style. If you have um, citations from another source, try to mimic the PubMed style because it usually works pretty well. There are also websites that give you, they auto-generate citations for you. I have one ready for you guys. It's called MyBib. I used to use this one. I use it pretty often. I also like their style. So just stick to one style. If you use PubMed style, make sure all your citations look like that. If you use MyBib or whatever tool you use, stick to that style. Because if your styles and your like citations look different for each citation, it just looks a little unprofessional. It's a stylistic choice, but I want you guys to have it as professional as possible. I will send this link over to the Slack as well. So you don't have to click it right now or worry about that. And I will send over that bibliometrics website over to Slack as well. So I think we've gone over everything. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. For all of you who stayed here, like that's commitment right there. And again, you guys are official USC Neuro Scholars, right? We got that sponsorship. And I really hope that you guys work on your research because I want to see you guys at the USC Keck School of Medicine, whether I see you in person or maybe virtually. And if you don't get selected, again, there's that virtual symposium later on, which the professors will be at, I'll be at, and we'll make public for other people, like other researchers, other students. They'll be able to watch you present, and that's such a big opportunity. Another thing, last thing, is that I know I mentioned the SAT before. The SAT is coming up this August 22nd. It's a Saturday. During that week, I will not be able to read too many emails or questions or Slack messages. I might just completely like go AWOL because the SAT is important. And the same thing goes for you guys. I won't assign you guys tasks during that time because I want you guys to focus on the SAT. For those of you guys who are going into college admissions, either you're going to a junior year or you're going into senior year and you're working on college applications, your SAT is pretty important for a lot of private schools. If you don't, if you're not taking the SAT or you're going to a school that doesn't require it, that's okay. But a lot of students are, and I want to focus on that. So I think that's the last announcement I had to make. Thank you guys so much for coming. You guys are free to leave.